In this lesson, we'll work on our stretchy IK arms. Now before getting started, I'd like to point out that the left arm is now ready to stretch in FK mode. So that will look really nice when we tie in our flexi lines. Alright, let's go ahead and take care of the IK arm. We know that we'll need to unfreeze the length of our shoulder and forearm. Let's take care of that now. So we'll grab our bone tools. We'll start with the shoulder. Let's go ahead and scroll down and unfreeze the length here. Let's take care of the forearm. And now we'll need to do the same thing on the right side. Now when we build our expression, we'll only do that for the left arm. I'll go ahead and leave the right arm up to you because we're using the exact same steps. Now, it's a good idea to make sure that the IK nubs have also been frozen. That way we're dealing with 0 values. We'll just go ahead and clean them up. Next, we'll create our expose node to track the distance of this arm. Taking a look at our display settings, you'll notice that they're the same as the current expose node we have tied to our shoulder. So we just want to change this up to make sure that when they overlap, we can still select between the two. So I'll use a display of box, and we'll also increase the size here to about 5. So once we add that, we can now go ahead and align it to our shoulder. Beautiful. Let's go ahead and have this stored in our hidden layer. We'll have this linked to our chest control. And then we can go ahead and rename the object. So that's going to be distance L arm IK01. Great. We'll move over to our modify panel because now it's time to track the two objects we need to plug into this expose node. Let's go ahead and also press the Q key so we don't accidentally link any objects we're not supposed to. Alright. So we'll uncheck parent. We'll go ahead and expose the left shoulder control. And we'll also want to expose our IK goal. Remember, these are the same steps we used for the legs. Let's scroll down and we'll find our distance. Here it is. Now remember, this isn't our max distance. In order to find the max distance, we need to stretch our IK arm. So let's grab our IK control and we'll start to pull at it to a point where it kind of locks up. Great. Now keep in mind that after we're finished with our expression, if you notice that the arms have a slight bend, that simply means that your max distance isn't large enough. Now we don't want that value to be too large because that means that the arm will pop when the expression finally kicks in. So we need to be very careful and just subtly pull at this just to a point where the arm is again extended, where we see this linearity from the shoulder to our wrist. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at our max distance. So our expose node feeds back to us about a value of 27. We can round that out, this 26.879 to about 27. So let's go ahead and work with that value in our expression. I'll now go ahead and take the arm control and let's go ahead and use transform to 0 to bring it back. We'll go ahead and select the forearm and let's go ahead and move over to our motion panel. We'll find the 0 position X and create our float expression controller. We need to create a few variables. The first will be global for our global scale. Next will be distance. We won't add enable, not just yet, even though we have created a button already. We just want to make sure that the scaling works first. So once we've made sure of that, then we'll go ahead and finish up by adding the enable variable. Alright, so we have distance highlighted. Let's go ahead and search for that parameter. So we know that that's tied to our chest control. We'll expand the global node. From there, we'll expand the center of gravity. Here's the chest control. And here we find our distance node. Let's go ahead and expand that to get to object distance. All right, now we'll go ahead and find the global scale. So here's the global node. We'll expand the inside to get to transform scale y. All right, it's time to build our expression. So that's going to be if, open and close parentheses. Following that, that's going to be distance. So if our distance is greater than or equal to our max distance, remember we're using a value of 27, and we need to multiply by our global scale. So we'll go ahead and use our global variable here. So if this is correct, from there, we'll need to now go ahead and put our comma, and now we're ready to build our true statement. So we need to find the length of our shoulder. Here it is. Remember, when finding this value, we need to make sure we're in parent space. So that's 10.339. I'll go ahead and copy that, paste, and we'll now divide by our max distance. Here it is, 27 times global. Let's copy that. Now before we paste, let's go ahead and add a few more parentheses, and we'll go ahead and paste inside so that this gets evaluated correctly. Now we need to multiply by the change of our distance. So let's go ahead and concatenate this again. And right outside of our second to last parentheses, we'll go ahead and multiply by distance. Now all of this needs to equal a value of 0 when we evaluate. So again, we'll go ahead and add a few more parentheses at the start and end of our true statement. And right after our second to last parentheses, we'll go ahead and add minus. And then following that, we'll go ahead and copy the length of our shoulder. And that's what we'll subtract by. All right, let's finish up by adding the false part of our statement, which we know to be 0. So we'll add a comma, and then we'll go ahead and add our 0. Let's take a look at the expression, making sure we won't run into any syntax errors. Just making sure everything is spelled correctly. Also making sure that we are using the right amount of parentheses. There's quite a bit here, so we just want to make sure to track each of them. This looks good. Let's go ahead and now evaluate. I'll move over to the expression editor, and we should now notice a stretch in the shoulder. Beautiful. Okay, so we can now finish up the expression by adding our enable variable. We know that the button is tied to our chest control, so we should be able to find it quickly. Here's the chest. Let's expand the inside to get to modified object, extra controls, and here it is. L arm IK stretch. We'll choose OK. We'll now need to concatenate the entire expression because this now is our true statement. Right before our first parentheses, we'll go ahead and type in if. And again, we'll go ahead and concatenate the entire expression. Right after the first parentheses, we'll go ahead and type in enable. So if this is equal to 1, now we'll put our comma, space, and then following that, here's our true statement. Right after the second to last parentheses, we'll now put another comma and put in the false part of our statement, which is 0. Great. Let's go ahead and evaluate this. Let's test this out. Again, I'll move over the expression editor. We'll go ahead and start to stretch the arm. No stretch. Now, if we were to go to our chest control, enable the stretch, you'll notice now that the arm starts to pull. Beautiful. All right, great. So we have the information we'll need to tie in to our forearm to get that to pull. Let's go ahead and copy all of this. It's pretty lengthy. We'll get the forearm done in no time at all. Let's go ahead and grab our nub and move back to our motion panel and find our 0 position x-axis and assign our float expression controller. Let's go ahead and paste in our code. Let's search for our controllers. So we'll go ahead and type in a few variables here. That's going to be enable. The next will be global. And finally distance. All right, great. So from there, we'll go ahead and start to assign these. Here's distance. Here is enable. And here is our global scale. To evaluate this, remember we need to find the length of our forearm. So as long as we have the wrist selected, we have that length here. That's 16.449. I'll copy that and change the 10.339 to this value. So we need to do that twice. Let's evaluate this. Close it out. And now we should notice that the entire arm will stretch. Not only does it stretch, but we have the linearity we need. There's no bend in that elbow. Great. Now, with the arm stretched, let's see what happens when we go to our chest control and we turn off our stretchy system. Everything's working fine. I'll leave that on because it looks pretty cool. Let's go ahead and grab our arm control. We'll alt-right click and choose Transform to 0 to bring it back. So again, the steps are the same for our right arm. Let's go ahead and set that up. And then in the following lesson, we'll make sure to tie our stretchy systems into our main chains.